guys, what's going on? This is Cody,
And I'm Sean.
and we are PIREP Aviation. Today, we're gonna talk about a panel update that we've both been doing. Mine is actually completed, and yours is in process. And so, again, what we are is we're just regular guys that enjoy aviation. That we're not mechanics, we're not AMP IAs, we're not CFIs. We're just here to share the knowledge that we have gained and hope that that you learn from it. So,
Yep.
Happy 4th of July, by the way. It is
4th of July. Hot 4th of July here in Fort Worth,
hot
Texas.
outside. I am in air conditioning right now.
Yep,
hence
it's nice.
not in the pool. But what do you got planned today other than what we're doing?
Nothing.
All right.
Nothing. We may, which you'll find out about later, is try to put together just getting us and maybe Brian and going to dinner.
Yeah.
Or who, I don't know. Whatever. No plans.
Cool.
No plans.
Yeah, I've been flight planning. I'm
You got your big trip coming up.
going to Minnesota to go see my parents. They have a little private airstrip in their backyard, and I say private, it's literally private. It's not even on the charts. So it's a fun little strip that I grew up on and learning to fly in and out of. So taking the whole family in the 182 and and just
be the
working
first
real
trip in
family
that in a long
trip.
time.
Yeah, not even a long time. Like
long time.
forever. I've never done a long like
Have
this.
you not taken the whole family?
Not in a cross country
Far?
like this.
No,
No,
I guess not.
No, it'll be fun. So I'm curious to see how my kids are going to do.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
It was funny because I asked them, or Chloe, my oldest, she's 12 and a half, and she said, "Hey, Daddy, how long is this flight going to be?" And I said, "Oh, it's about 6.5, 7 hours." She goes, "What? That's a long flight." And I said, "You guys drive 12 and a half hours straight through and don't complain." And
Yeah.
she did, it's just that realization that normally we're in this plane for an hour,
A long time.
maybe. So anyway, it's going to be fun. So
Yeah,
I've been
that'll be cool.
weather
That'll be cool.
planning and wishing I had my IFR ticket
Well, soon enough.
soon enough. So,
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm anxious to be able to actually plan a flight and fly my airplane again soon. So
yeah. And it'll be the first time with the panel on a long flight. So
yeah, that'll be really cool. You get to know it, and especially being a relatively easy VFR flight, you can
Yeah.
experiment with things, and
Yep.
Michelle can learn stuff.
Absolutely.
And, it'll be cool. It'll be very cool.
And we'll get into what I did to the panel. So there's a lot of everything's new.
Yeah, it's definitely a major upgrade.
Yeah, it's
so
going to be fun. So
Well, cool. Well, yeah, since our first episode the other day, we're slowly figuring all this out.
Yeah.
So we've made a few modifications to our setup here. We're going to try this a little more personable, a little more talking to, the people that are actually watching us instead of listening to us,
Yeah.
which that's the other new thing. Now we've got our podcast, the audio version, on Spotify. So the link for that will be below if anybody just wants to listen. It's kind of cool. But yeah,
you get to hear my soothing voice.
Yeah, there you go.
For an
My
hour.
horrible voice, but so the panel planning process.
Yeah, the panel.
We've talked about this for years. You always think about things that you want to do, what you might need, and then you start adding it up. You're like, okay, that's crazy.
Out of the
Well,
budget. Yeah.
Here in the last, I guess it was the end of 2021, we decided, conveniently, both of us at about the same time that,
Yeah.
I think it's time. So, what we'd like to kind of just run through with everybody is our process, which, I'm sure big shops have a structured way that they do things. But
We're very involved people.
we are, we probably drive our guy insane. I know I do. You didn't as much. But,
I'm I'm a lot nicer. When I keep to myself and then I hold it in. But the point is, like, even just recently, right? I mean, my wingtips. I just put a wingtip on, and someone had done some work to it. Fiberglass. I grew up with my dad building KR2, so I mean, fiberglass and being itchy, and I've probably got so much dust in my lungs from that. But anyway, so when it came and it was on the plane, I just wasn't thrilled.
It just didn't look good.
And you can agree. And so I took it home and literally spent about 2.5 hours on each tip, and took my new LED lights off, and anyway, but so the same thing, like very involved. And so now I just fit it and it looks amazing.
Right.
And I'm very detailed anyway when it comes to all the things.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, with that panel process, I mean, I remember going to Oshkosh last year. And what did we do?
Yeah, we did a lot of panel research last year. That was kind of our mission last year.
And you know what's funny? We never stepped foot in Dynon's.
Yeah, what we did was completely different from what we looked at. I mean, we looked at doing. I know I did. I looked at doing just a simple dual G5 setup. Yeah. And then you kind of got us on the Dynon kick, but we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. But like I was saying, the process is different for everyone. So this is the method that we went. And obviously it starts with research. Absolutely. Just looking at all these different things and having done the experimental stuff for, so long, we're familiar with Dynon, GRT, MGL, all the usual suspects, and of course Garmin. And, just trying to decide what direction we want to go. And, with the certified world, it's different because, now we've got to hire somebody to do all this. And, it's, they've got to be, a dealer for the product that we're going with. So in some places that you like, don't install the product that you like. So you've got to go with somebody else. So, it's tricky. So what we basically did is, you've got to identify your mission. What do you want your panel to do? And obviously, what do you want to spend? It's kind of hard to start with the spending number, though. You almost need to build in your mind the panel that you want and then make your compromises after that. And
I have in front of me. I mean, I did this last year at Oshkosh, and I'm very analytical when it comes to numbers, and you are as well. I mean, like we said last time, is very, okay, how can I do this? And how can I do it for less than what most people do it for? And so it's we've owned our planes for 5+ years, and that makes a difference. Just like you guys know with the housing market, the airplane market, they are not worth what they were 5 years ago. And so I think that decision came into play too. It's not like we just bought these planes and said, let's do this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're always looking at the end game, I don't want to be upside down in my airplane.
Everything's for sale.
And I don't even want to be at break even on my airplane. I want to have equity in my airplane.
That's everything. So I mean, last year at Oshkosh, it was, literally this list, it was only Garmin, and it was option 1, option 2, option 3. And then at the very bottom, I put stuff I can sell. Right.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it.
It is a big part of it. 'Cause sometimes you don't think about that. And so, yeah, I mean, it was different, but I mean, I remember you and I sitting there at night just going, okay, this is this option. This is this option. Yep. I have pictures correlating with them. And it was just very, the mission was essentially all the same.
Right.
It was just how much screen real estate did I want?
Yeah. And where you wanted it. Yeah. I mean, I think, just so we can let the viewers know, I mean, our basic mission is, GA cross country flying, and being able to fly, hard instruments, hard IFR. And then another thing that we kind of came up with in our process, talking about screen real estate, is where we want these screens. If I flew by myself all the time, which, I'm typically mostly the only pilot in the plane, but I would probably have both my screens in front of me. But we wanted more of a dual pilot setup, and we also kind of tried to set up our panels very similar. Yeah. So when Cody's working on his instrument training, it's an easy transition for me to be in his airplane as safety pilot and vice versa. And so we went more of a, traditional kind of like, little PFD in front of each pilot, basically.
My wife calls us Twinkies.
Yeah. So
whatever Sean does, Cody does. Whatever Cody does, Sean does. So
anyway, but that kind of fit the mission.
But at the end of the day, I mean, she's not wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, it makes sense to go, hey, if my plane's down and I want to take an IFR trip, I don't have to go from this setup to this setup.
Right.
It exactly, and she's joking. All kidding aside, she's joking, but in reality, that made sense to us.
Mm-hmm. Because we're both really smart and
absolutely
like good things.
Exactly. So,
but it works for us.
It does.
It works for us. We hope it works for us. I still don't have mine back, but we've got a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we identified as our mission. As far as brands, I was pretty hardcore Garmin when you kind of decided that you wanted to go with Dynon. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I know last year we were both looking heavy on the Garmin side of things. I went as far as to have an estimate done by our local Garmin dealer, and you went in a different direction. I mean, what kind of led to that? What made you decide that?
I'm frugal. So there are subscriptions that are required for certain companies that I did not want to have to pay every year.
Yeah.
And for me, flying is, how do I keep my cost as minimal as possible, my fixed cost.
Right.
Because operating is all up to you. In my mind, is how much you fly, how much fuel you put in those tanks, etc. So for me, it was, how do I keep that monthly at a minimum?
Right.
And so again, that was really one of the largest deciding factor. The other thing was the guy that I met. I'll just go into that. It was a post on North Texas Aviators on Facebook page that said, "Hey, I'm so and so, and I am I'm starting up an avionics shop." And I said, "Sweet." And I remember calling you and being like, "Sean, this is what's going on. He's coming over. You want you look at your plane too? I know you were thinking about it, and just like you like to spend my money, I like to spend yours." And so Colin came over. It's Grits Aero up at Roanoke, 52F.
Yep.
And also known as Northwest Regional. So he came over and he looked at it and he said, "Man, perfect. My panel, it had a 430 in it. It had an old school wing leveler. And the 6-pack was not a 6-pack. It was like this guy's 4-pack, that person's 2-pack. It was just everywhere. It was the old 66 J model layout, and it just wasn't anything special."
Right. And side note, we will be doing kind of a before and after video of both the 182 and the 235. So you'll get to see all that eventually.
So I saw the post and I just messaged him, and I'm going, "Man, I love entrepreneurs. I'm one myself like you. And I love people that are go-getters." And, so, I mean, more so aside from the panel, I'm like, "How old are you? How long have you been doing this?" And then I said, "Okay, cool." And so he came over and he looked at it and gave me a price. And I remember telling you, and I said, "Well, I really want Garmin." And deciding factor number 2 was, I'm not a Garmin dealer.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, well, what are you?" And he goes, "Well, I can do Dynon." And so Dynon, Avidyne, so on and so forth. And so I have never flown behind an autopilot.
Wow.
I'm here. And other than your airplane, but even then, when I've flown it personally, I've never
Didn't use autopilot. Sure.
So my wing leveler, it snaked with the 430, and it if I had to take my head down again, it was down for a brief moment, but I would flip the wing leveler on, and that was it.
Right.
So I've never had that. So I'm going, I want an autopilot. So the GFC 500, I've heard rants and raves of how amazing it is.
Right.
But since he couldn't do it, and I wanted coupled with the Dynon, it ended up, it just wouldn't work. And so I wanted something that was integrated all together, that in my lifetime of owning the airplane, I'll never upgrade again.
Right.
That's kind of it. So
and Dynon had the carrot dangling. The 182 bar on being complete is almost there. So
I was going to mention that.
So
it's still almost there.
Yeah, it's still almost there. Hopefully we'll hear something
now,
at Oshkosh this year.
Bonanza was not there either.
Yeah, and now it's
people
approved.
were complaining, and this is just my thought.
I mean, I don't think it's Dynon.
It's not. It's the FAA.
The FAA is slow.
Correct.
Who knows?
And just people don't want to work, right? So I think that's everywhere, in our industry and everywhere else. So
it's just tough.
But yeah, that was the main deciding factor. And so I saw a couple of panels that he did, never in person.
Right.
I just saw it, and I told him how particular I am, and so it just kind of worked out.
Yeah. So, and about that time, let's see. I met Colin here that day. He came and looked at your airplane, and we found out he couldn't do the dynon. So I had a different problem.
You mean the autopilot?
The autopilot.
You're dynon autopilot for your plane?
No. Just I was wanting to do Garmin anyways because I knew the dynon autopilot was way far off.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I was kind of on the Garmin kick at that point. And then I started doing some, really, detailed kind of comparisons. In fact, I even went and flew with a buddy of mine with his G3X and his GFC 500. And the GFC 500 was really nice, but it wasn't so much of an improvement over my S-Tech 55X that it warranted spending, $25,000 to switch. But then I had this predicament because the S-Tech, it would talk with the G3X, but it won't talk to the dynon. And long story short, I ended up going with the dynon, and I'm going to keep the S-Tech 55X. And, if it's 4 years before the dynon autopilot gets certified for the PA-28s, fine. At least I've still got a good autopilot. I had to add the G5.
You had an autopilot that you had to work around.
Right.
In order to, because you have flown behind autopilot and GPS approaches and so on and so forth. So that was an integral part of
that was a critical thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take my family and fly hard IMC without an autopilot. I can do it, yes. You got to be able to do it, but it's exhausting.
Time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in autopilots. Firm believer in keeping your hand skills sharp too, but
it's there.
It's there. Use it for things to lower fatigue. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the key component that I built my panel around, and did end up going with the dynon, and not necessarily for, a few reasons. Number one, the subscription model. I like the dynon Avidyne combo for monthly fees better than Garmin. And I like the presentation of data on the screen on the dynon better. And I've told this to a few people, and I don't remember on the G3X, but dynon uses orange for some things.
The ADSB,
yeah, for your traffic and for your decision altitude bug, which I don't remember the Garmin popping like that. So just to me, that just for my brain, that orange popped out, and it was more noticeable. It just, the way I perceived the information, it just was a more pleasant and readable interface.
And again, it's everybody's mission is different, and how you perceive, how you retrieve that data off the screen is going to be different.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And then of course, right, we went dynon because we're like, let's be Twinkies.
Yeah.
And
well, and also going back to Colin, we both we like entrepreneurs, and here he is, this guy left a big shop to go set up his own shop, and he needed 2 clients to do full dynon installs to become a certified dynon shop. So we it was kind of cool to help him get that, and he helped us, and we will have our planes to help market for him later on, and I think it'll be cool.
I even said, go ahead and etch your logo into my panel. So it's permanently installed on my panel. And I'm okay with that. Like, he did a phenomenal job. And I think, like, we're in the construction industry. Mm-hmm. So you build a house. What happens when you're done building it? You think of all the things that you want to change.
Right.
I'm having that moment with the airplane, and I
was glad that you went first.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, I love everything about it. There's the things that you've added, I can add and change later. And so, but again, I'm super happy with it. Like,
it looks great. You guys will be excited to see it.
Just like anything else, you start doing it and you go, well, while I'm in it, let's go ahead and do this. While I'm there, let's go do this. And so,
and that's the time to do it. You've got everything torn apart. It makes sense. So
and I think let's go into the equipment portion of it, right? So obviously dynon.
Yeah, dynon.
I love screens. I love buttons, and screens, which cost a lot of money. Just kidding. No, they do. But no, for real. And that was the other thing too with Dynon is to add another screen was, I think it was like 45 or it was a very low cost.
It's pretty cheap.
And the way he had to wire it was easy. It was nothing really additional other than cutting another hole. And so
the labor side of thing wasn't
much more. And so that was the other thing too for me. I'm going, well, the other options elsewhere, you see a lot of these planes that they stick the iPad into the panel. I remember I was going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was really set on it. And he goes, man, what about iPads change every 5 minutes? And
I'm just not a fan of those. I mean, if you're going to do it, you need to do it with like a mount that you buy the case and you put it on there and you can upgrade your case.
Personal preference, right?
Exactly.
You can do whatever works for you.
And there's companies out there that do very well making panel mounts for iPad 3 or 4.
Everything made now is, it seems like it's not made to last, or and that's where they get people to continually buy phones and iPads.
It's a whole subscription upgrade model.
Correct, and it's brilliant. But at the end of the day, I wanted more screen. I wanted the iPad in my panel, and you talked me out of it. I went with dual 10-inch HDXs, and directly centered over my yokes. My panel ended up having a joggle in it. And a joggle is essentially just a deviation of a parallel line, right? It just drops down. It dropped down about 1.5 inches on the top of my glare shield. And to find that in itself was difficult. And so I ended up making it straight across. And so it helped with the whole process of planing and everything. But the dual HDXs, I ended up having the 430 that it sat for about 1.5 years. 3 years without being used. My plane, that's another story. I've essentially gone from a 182 that is just, it's fairly basic to I'm redoing everything. Yeah. Interior paint, panel,
full rehab,
glass. I mean, I'm talking bladders and so on and so forth. And that's what we're going to be sharing on as well. And but with that, the panel process had the color I picked had something to do with what the interior was going to be, and you talked me into doing that. But the point is, my 430 had a big yellow cube in the middle. Everything still functioned and worked properly, but it had this yellow cube, and it was frustrating. And I couldn't figure it out if it was just, hey, leave it on, let it warm up, maybe it'll go away, and it didn't. So I ended up sending it to Garmin and had them completely refurb it, get the warranty, and then I just sold it. And so I still made some money on it. I kind of we caught the wave of the 430 hype.
Yeah, they were selling for way more than I could have ever imagined.
And so at the end of the day, I ended up selling it and just went with the 440, the Avidyne 440. I look back, I would have, knowing now, probably gone with the 540 just for the screen real estate. But it does the same thing.
I disagree with that. So I thought about that, and actually, I was thinking the same thing, but I thought the 540 was the 550.
Yes, now, I remember that.
If it were $2,000 more, I would try to find a way to get the 550 because I like the backup AHRs and all that stuff. But with the what is it, the IFD 1000 app?
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
It duplicates your 440 with a bigger screen.
So go into that. Go and explain.
I mean, I don't know a lot about it, just from what I've read so far and played with online. But there's an app for your iPad, and it mirrors the screen of your Avidyne 440 or 540 or whatever you have.
Which gives you the screen real estate.
It gives you the real estate. It's easier to see. You can keep it on your yoke, and you can also split screen it with ForeFlight if you're a ForeFlight user, which is kind of cool.
Can you change frequencies on the iPad?
Real time. Change them. You can change your flight plan. I mean, it's like having a second screen.
I think that was the other thing too.
It's pretty cool.
Doing that 440 with Dynon, they work so well together, and then everybody, I say everybody, but iPhones, right? And I'm pretty sure they're compatible with what's the other one other than Apple? Android. Sorry. If you're an Android user, forgive me. But the compatibility was just so incredible,
right?
That it was I love technology. I like buttons, right? As I said before. So for me, I'm going, okay, this is what I want. This is how I want it to work. I want to be able to flight plan on ForeFlight, pop it in, hit send, and it goes directly to the 440.
Oh, yeah.
And then I hit a button on my Dynon, and boom, it flops over, and now it's on my Dynon. And
I can't wait for that. I mean, as a 430
it's a
user,
game changer.
I mean,
yeah.
inputting flight plans and it's 102 degrees on the ground. You're clicking all. Being able to just shoot it over Wi-Fi is going to be incredible. I cannot wait. That's going to be cool.
So I did that, and then I ended up. I was going to keep my audio panel. I was going to do a basic panel upgrade. When I say basic, I was getting newer, probably 5 to 10-year-old Garmin technology that I already purchased.
Right.
With the ADS-B, with the audio panel, and then you found. I like you doing the research because I just remember you spend my money. So you found the PSE 450B, which was the dual Bluetooth.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I have kids, so for me, I mean, that's one of the highlights of our trip coming up. I'm going, we can shut them down.
Yeah.
100% behind us, and I don't have to hear them, oh, he's touching me, right? And so it's going to be super awesome. And then also, there's just a lot of functions. I love the playback feature. You have that in your Cherokee, or had that with your Garmin.
I've got my old
and I never did. And it's just the little creature comforts.
Yeah, it's nice.
So that's what I have. I mean, I have. I ended up going with the second Dynon comm radio. So I just have a single nav, but the second comm has, again, a cool little feature where it has ATIS and approach and departure and ground and
just
tower.
Smart.
Just little buttons.
It's modern, smart. And that was one of the things I struggled with because, I had a SL30 in mine. And so I had the 430 and the SL30. So I had dual comms, dual nav. And it took a while. Even up until almost ready to deliver my airplane to have the work done, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep the SL30 or not. And after talking to Dynon about it, I finally decided I'm going to let that go.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the modern, Dynon radio. The 440 should cover everything I need. I've got plenty of GPS redundancy. I don't have any, ground-based nav aid redundancy other than the 440, but they're going away. And, I just made the choice to go more modern. So literally everything will be new. I won't have any old puzzle pieces left in my panel.
Yeah. I mean, you look behind that panel, like my 182, and there's hardly anything back there. It's really
so much
different.
better.
And I think I lost 12 pounds.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is quite a bit. But, I'm again, the idea of not having to do this 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The screen on the Dynon is so crisp and so clean that, and just in the 5-6 hours that I've flown it since getting it, just to be able to use it, the usability is
it makes sense. It's intuitive,
very much. And again, the one feature that I love is I can have my screen and this screen over here, and I'm sure Garmin does this, but you can hit a button on the screen, and it's touch as well as, so it's a hybrid, which I love. But you can hit a button and it flip flops the screen. So and it just, even in flight, you can be changing things around and how your layout is, which is awesome. Yeah. So
it's very customizable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and my layout, let's talk about that. Like how we got the layout.
Well, so I'm kind of and this is where I have no idea the proper way to do things, but I know what works for me. And I did the same sort of thing when I designed the panel in the Panther. I start off with paper, sketch out basically what I want. I like symmetry, so I want it to look good. And so what I did on this, which is kind of a cool way to do it, I laid everything out on paper, just got my general idea of what I want. Once I decided what hardware is going in there. And then there's and I can't remember the name of it. I'll put the link below, but there's a free panel planner website where they've got a bunch of panels for most of the general aviation planes out there. A lot of experimentals too. A lot of the RVs are on there. Yeah. And it's actually really good, for planning.
Yep.
So I would play with that so I could actually see actual sizes and do my drawing work.
Master switches and USBs.
Yeah, it's got all that stuff.
Everything
Carbon monoxide detectors. I mean, it's got it all. So I was able to actually put the dynon in there with the IFD, with, my autopilot, and, see what it looks like. And once I had that figured out, what I did was I made that cutout out of foam core, like foam poster board.
Yep.
Made a cutout of my panel. Then I printed out actual size printouts of all the equipment that you can get from the manufacturer's websites, and just taped them all on this panel the way I wanted them. Then I stuck that panel on the airplane, and I sat in the airplane, and I just played. How do those switches feel there? If I'm going to the throttle, am I going to hit anything? One of the problems I had on my airplane, which was a really bad location, is the avionics switch was right underneath my audio stack, and my 430 was up there. And this, but when I was doing my instrument check ride and putting something into the 430, it was super bumpy that day. My hand flew down and shut the avionics master off, and I lost everything. And if you have a 430, now you got to put it all back in, and you're stressing out in your check ride.
Another reason why I got rid of the 430.
It was a pain. Yeah. So now my avionics and master are over here by themselves with a guard, so they're not going to accidentally get turned off. But after putting the foam core up there, then I could just peel off the EFIS and move it around different places and see what I liked, what flowed. And so I think I came up with a pretty good layout for me. And I've got, my master and avionics over here. I've got all my breakers, in one area. They're not all over the airplane anymore. I've got all my lights underneath the audio stack with my altitude pre-select. And then what I did a little differently than what you normally see, I was wondering, everybody always puts their audio panel on top. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's just a holdover from years ago when it was more important than it was, maybe for your marker beacon or something. But, I didn't want it on top. So my autopilot's on top. And then I've got my 440. And then I've got my audio panel. Yeah. So it's going to move down.
It's a little different than what you had originally.
Mm-hmm. Because I had the autopilot on the top. Yeah. And then I had the 430, and then I had the S-Tech. So now my S-Tech's going to be up on top. Yeah. Now, the only thing I couldn't do, was my altitude pre-select. I really wanted that in front of me too, and there was no way to do it. So it's basically where it used to be.
Well, and you did it in a way that when Dynon does come out,
right,
the PA-28, that you'll be able to
pull that bottom panel off because it's a sub panel.
Yep.
And put the head for the Dynon there, and it won't mean a whole panel redo.
Correct.
So tried to put some expandability for future things.
And I did it more traditional. I have my audio panel up top, and then my 440, and that's it. And my 182 panels
yours looks just, you've got so much real estate,
so empty.
Yeah,
I feel like I need
more stuff.
I know. So, and that's kind of the reason of like the screen real estate. But at the end of the day, again, the 440 and the 540 does the same thing. And so,
I think they're identical with the exception of screen size, and the bigger one has, I think, an extra key, a soft key on it. So not a lot.
I mean, I know you're talking about switches, and when I was doing mine, again, that whole nature of, well, while I'm here.
Sure.
And when you're redoing a panel, there's a lot of wiring, and there's lights, and there's this. And so I ended up going all new Wheeling LED lights,
right?
Strobe lights on my wingtips. I went with the new beacons. I went with the new tail beacon light as well. And I already had the landing lights that were LED. So
and you did new, what are they, SICE or seat? How do you say that? Fuel flow?
I did new SICE fuel flow senders.
Because you had to wire those in.
Correct.
And those have to have power. So you did that.
They're digital. So the difference between digital and the analog is you're supposed to get a much more accurate reading. And the analog likes to flop around a lot. And so you'll get that inconsistency in turbulence.
Right.
I wanted, while I was in there, everything costs money, but while I was in there, I said, why not? Right. And they're custom made per airplane. And so, but I did all new switches, all new breakers. I mean, I'm talking not a single switch was left. I did a new master. I did a split master switch like the newer Cessnas. I have it kind of laid out like the newer Cessnas, just because I like that layout.
Sure.
And that was just my preference. But again, all new breakers and new rheostat dimmers and everything like that. I mean, my dimmers were so janky.
That's one of the things I'm really excited about, those dimmers. So we've got the
Max Pulse.
The Max Pulse.
Which is really
cool. Now we can wig-wag our landing lights and control those. And then the Max Dim, which will have panel lighting and backseat lighting. That'll all be on the Max Dim. So that'll be kind of cool.
So I had him wire a new ELT, panel-mounted ELT, and like I said, the lights, the switches, and he did a new glove box for me, so I don't, the older Cessna panels angled out quite a bit.
Right.
And they were just plasticky panel covers, and so I ended up doing a complete new, you push it and it falls down, and I love it. And again, just all the little things.
Sure.
The creature comforts.
Well, the glove box, I mean, that's something I never considered. Yeah. And Colin's like, hey, you want a glove box? I'm like, well,
he's a Piper.
Sure, I want a glove box.
Right? Piper
so
guy.
Now I've got a glove box that, and that's where I told him he could put his logo on there.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited about that. I mean, just all the little creature comforts.
Now you did, while my panel was in, you did a lot of stuff to your airplane.
Yeah.
And we won't get into a lot, but part of that with the panel upgrade, it was the hump in the middle.
Got rid of the hump.
Right? And you guys know most Pipers have that monstrosity. For short guys like me, you can hardly see over it. And so you got rid of it.
Yeah, it's gone now. So it's more, best I can tell on Pipers is depending on what avionics package you bought back in the day, they had to make it taller for whatever. So apparently whatever mine had was some big honking thing up there, probably some giant ADF or something. But, so now I've just got a symmetrical panel, and it's so much easier to see over.
I like
or glare shield, I guess.
It looks good. And then you ended up doing
and you don't lose that much real estate. I mean, you gained about an inch before on top of your audio stack, but the stack was offset, and now my stack's in the middle, so everything's kind of symmetrical.
But it's more streamlined. It's more modernized.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
You have a 60,
cleaner looking.
You have a 64 model.
64.
So you look at that 64 and you go, "There's no way." I mean, especially once that panel's done. And so, well, let's go into the timeline. I mean, the timeline for me, I wasn't in a hurry. I'll get into this story later, but I had 3 years where my plane was down, and again, we'll get into that.
That's another long podcast.
That'll be its
but
own.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. We tell people, but okay. So timeline. We both build houses, and that's always what people want to ask. When are you going to be finished? And that's always the $1 million question, and it's hard to answer. So we kind of knew that. Here's this guy that's just opened up his new shop. We're not going to hammer him too hard on timeline. So, he quoted, I can't remember. It was like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And it wasn't far off of that.
For mine, it wasn't too far.
Within the 8-week period. And in mine, it's going a little bit longer, but it's also because the shop moved. And it's probably me going up there changing things. But no, we both kind of knew that we weren't going to hold any solid, hardcore time constraints. We don't have any things that we have to do.
For us, it was also, we were the first. I mean, he already has done panels before, but we were his first real full-fledged, completely gut
redo. Through the new business.
Absolutely, through his new business, his venture, right? And so, I mean, that guy's already booked for the next,
he's almost booked
12, 14 months.
Yeah, at least a year out, I think.
So, and that's the thing is there are a lot of bigger shops that can probably get in and out in 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, they have a team of people.
Correct.
He's just starting, and we wanted to be a part of that.
Correct.
So,
correct.
Here we are.
Yeah. So it wasn't as important. I mean, I did probably bother him more towards the end, going, "Hey, when is it gonna? What do you think? When do you?" Because again, mine's been down for a while. I did a lot of upgrades, a lot of different things. There's some stuff that was found and from like 40 years ago that had to be taken care of. That just for me and taking my family, I felt like it was necessary.
Sure.
So that's kind of what sparked all of this. I'm going, "Oh, it's already been down this long. Why not let it be down longer?"
Get it all done. I mean, just like mine, the whole interior's gutted out of my plane, and when it gets back from avionics, the whole new interior's finished, it'll go in. And while I was waiting, when yours was in, that's when I replaced all my glass.
Yep.
And so just kind of, it's I think my plane it had a major remodel, renovation, whatever you want to call it, back in 2006.
Yeah.
So this is I think this is way more than what I got the first time.
Mine was probably like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I'm excited. Again, I love it. Once you guys see pictures, you'll love it too. And he really did an outstanding job.
He did a good job.
At the end of the day, it was everything that I expected. And he sends little teasers, right? So for me, I'm like, oh, let's do the whole Chip and Joanne thing and be like, look, this is your airplane. Mm-hmm. And I did, and it was really cool. And there's nothing, I already had the layout done. Mine was a little more simplistic because I did have so much panel real estate,
right,
that there was so much room to do the things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas yours, you have to be really methodical.
Right. Which kind of leads to one of the things I was going to talk about. You know, you deliver your airplane to the shop and you go over your vision and you show them your layout, and the more you can tell them, the better it is.
Absolutely.
You know? I mean, if you can lay things out to where you know it's going to fit, like I thought that I had done, it's going to save a ton of time. And so what happened on mine is I had a couple things that had to move. You know, like I wanted that altitude pre-select on the top. It just wasn't going to work. So then I'm like, okay, well, we'll put it down on the bottom, you know, at the bottom of the stack in the center. Well, that's where the T-bar, you know, the yoke T or whatever it is behind the panel, it would hit it. So we ended up having to kind of offset it and do this unsymmetrical thing, which, you know, in the end, it actually turns out really good. He did a cool little thing that for this removable sub panel, and it looks really nice.
He did a lot of additional items that I wasn't expecting. I mean, things that, you know, for me in our industry, what we do, I like coming up with creative ideas and different ways of
kind of your little
our
calling card thing.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And one thing with this particular U model of my plane was that forward where the panel was actually offset by about a half inch.
Mm-hmm.
And my panel is a one-piece panel, and then the lower part is a sub panel. And he just did things that, you know, he made a block that went over the outside of the co-pilot yoke,
right, that
was able to allow for a straight panel instead of having a bend.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things like that. And
sure.
I'm beyond excited about it.
No, it's cool. And then, you know, in addition to doing the panel design, you know, we get to pick, you know, he's got a full CNC setup for cutting out your panel, and then he's got a full powder coating setup to where they powder coat it. So they'll, you know, like on mine, you know, they powder coated it white, then they powder coated it black, and then they do the engraving so the white stands through. So it's not laser engraved. It's not as crisp as that, but it looks really good.
Yeah,
it looks way better than what I had before.
And I didn't want stickers.
Yeah. Oh no.
I'm not a fan. We looked at panels, and how many panels did I send going, oh, look at this one, and just because just everything's in the detail, right? And so when you see a brand new panel and then a sticker over a breaker because something got missed, it's a little frustrating. But yeah, the colors, that was hard. That was hard. Especially I was trying to keep my interior, and so I was trying to go with this 1994 tan leather, which doesn't look bad, but it just, to try to match it was very difficult.
It was hard.
And when he did,
then you didn't like it.
Well, it looked pink.
Yeah.
And the undertone, right? I say this with any kind of colors when I paint cabinets or walls. There's always an undertone with a color, and so that color made a huge difference. But yeah, at the end of the day, when everything was done, what did I say? I want black and light black,
lighter black.
And he goes, "You mean gray?" And what did I get? I got black with a light black. It's kind of a really charcoaly gray.
It's hard to tell depending on the light,
and it's perfect.
It's hard to tell.
Everything I wanted. I didn't want a stark difference, but that was probably one of the more difficult.
That was hard. We ended up
out.
having to get a
swatches
lot of swatches from the powder coat place.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a tough one.
Yep. But you know,
because we talked about going a little wild. You know, doing like lime green lettering or, you know, something real fashion forward. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. You know, just like on my interior, you know, I thought about, well, what if I did green stitching instead of white stitching? But I don't want to date the airplane.
Yeah.
You know, I think what I've got is going to be nice, new
It's
looking.
timeless.
Yeah, timeless.
Yep.
Exactly. It's like doing a white backsplash.
Yep.
You know, subway tiles. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
It'll go with anything. So that's kind of my thought there.
No, and along with the powder coating, you get not just the color, but the texture, the sheen.
The sheen, which is huge.
There's everything, and so all of that makes a huge difference. And
So we spent a lot of time on those colors.
Yeah.
Find something that wouldn't leave fingerprints. Finding something that, doesn't glare, when the sun hits it.
Well, and then also matches your interior. So, it was a good time.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
Fun.
But
let's see what we got on our notes here.
with my panel, I know I didn't have really many things that came up that were detrimental to my initial design.
Right.
Nothing structural that was in there that was going, hey, this is what we found. We can't do this. You know, in our industry, we run into that all the time. Your plane, like you said, you already mentioned that. You had that a few times.
I had that, with the interference from behind the panel, a couple things we had to change that I didn't really want to. In fact, I've got my alternator breaker and I guess it's one of the starter anyway, the larger breakers that would not go with the rest of my breakers. It had to go over to the right. So I've got 2 breakers by themselves still in my field of view because of things moving forward behind the panel. So that and my altitude pre-selected, the 2 big ones that I had to modify. So, there's going to be stuff that once you get to the shop, you're gonna have to, just like with airplanes, there's trade-offs. You have to decide, do I want this or that?
And at the end of the day, don't be afraid to bring anything up. And I think that's the biggest thing is don't be afraid if you think that it's not something that you're spending a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So whether, and this is how I feel like even with my clients is going, okay, you're spending it, get it done right the first time and do the things that cost a lot now, but are huge labor improvements later.
Mm-hmm.
Do that now. And then later on, if you want to add, like I didn't do a carbon monoxide detector. Right. I wanted one and it was too late. He worked his tail off to get to deliver my plane at the time that he had. And Sean was chomping at the bit to get his plane delivered so he could start. But I never did that. But again, that's a fairly easy add-on.
You've got plenty of room for it.
Correct. And I think that's the thing is, adding a second screen, or even if I wanted to go as far as getting a 4 or a 540, I can because it's there. Sure. But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to mention, and it's your panel, it's your plane.
Yeah, kind of have your wish list, which kind of is a good segue in just how involved you want to be.
Yeah.
I have no idea how other shops are, but we warned Colin long before I showed up that I like to see progress. I want to be involved.
We took him to lunch to try to bribe a little.
Yeah. And even last week, I think I went up there twice last week, which, I try to only bug him once a week. But I like to see the progress. Yeah. And it also gives you a chance if you see something that is not right, rather than all the way to delivery date, and now you kind of have to live with it, or got to be that guy. No, you got to tear it out.
And luckily for us, we are an hour drive.
Yeah, we're close.
Or a 16-minute flight away from where we're at, and you there's a lot of people that are like, I just flew my plane to Florida to get it done, and then you bring it back, and if you have any squawks, that's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough to have to go back out.
People deal with it. I mean, they've been doing it for years. It's just not what I would want. I prefer to have a local shop that can do my work, and if I've got problems, I can pick up the phone, and it doesn't take me 4 hours to fly out there to deal with something.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be fun. Again, this trip to Minnesota is going to be my first with the whole setup and just utilizing every aspect of it. And
it's
so
going to be cool.
I don't have my wing leveler anymore, so it is all hand flying. It's about a 6.5 hour flight. Yep. So it'll be good.
It'll be fun.
I'll come back and report on it and just kind of see how it did and what I liked. And again, there's so much knowledge that goes along with it. And again, I think that's why we went. I mean, we literally have everything the same other than the S-Tech 55 and then your G5.
The G5 and just some little things.
Which are just stuff that I'll add later. So
it's very, very similar. Yeah. I mean, it'll be very easy for us to get into each other's airplane, it'll feel right at home.
Yeah.
You know,
Except the back seat of your plane.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's Cherokee.
No, it's awesome. So
Yeah.
I loved it, man.
Yeah.
It was a good, and timing was right. Again, for us, it was the right time, financially, everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was
So,
perfect. And, I think we barely got in before a lot of the avionics shortages started happening.
Yeah.
In fact, I got hit with
Yep.
a screen delay, and finally it ended up making it on time. It wasn't a big
Yeah.
deal, but I was a little worried about that.
That was another reason with Garmin. I know.
Yeah,
lot
the
of their
Garmin
stuff
lead
was,
times were way longer than, I mean, down on when you ordered your stuff, and when I was looking at the G3X system, what is it, was it 345? Is that
Yeah.
the Garmin transponder?
Yeah.
I mean, that was way out there,
Yeah.
like 6 months out, and you were able to get all your stuff in a week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was a good overall. I'm super happy
Mm-hmm.
with it. Just again, the way that everything lays out is awesome.
yeah,
So
I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun getting used to it, learning it.
yeah,
Then, once we actually know what we're doing with it, then we can do some videos on that. And
Yeah.
just show basic operation. And
because there's not too many out there.
I mean,
There's some.
There's more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely catching on.
Yeah, it's becoming popular. I think
Mm-hmm.
the glass screen, and again, you get a lot of CFIs that they don't train in it.
Well, that's what I can't wait is to, till these CFIs or even places that rent airplanes where they start getting used to it, because I always loved flying doing IPCs with, really good pilots with just my 430 and stuff. And I always learned new things that the 430 would do that I didn't know, or a shortcut to do something that was cool. So I can't wait to have that with somebody that knows, like our dyno equipment or the 440. I mean, that does all kinds of stuff. So people that already fly behind those, I can't wait to just deep dive into all that equipment and learn it.
So
It's gonna be cool.
you get your plane potentially in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, potentially in a couple of weeks.
All right.
So hopefully.
It's gonna be
And
fun.
as soon as it gets back here, then it'll be time to get the interior in. That should only take 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And then I'm basically finished.
Yeah. And I've got quite a bit of stuff still
You got
on
a
my
list.
plate.
Well, some good glass changing videos and interior videos, and
I just did the bladder, and that was
fun.
That was a good time. But guys, this is again, this is just PIREP Aviation. We are regular guys who like airplanes and just want to share our knowledge and what we are learning.
And we're we're new at this too, so hopefully things will get better, and we'll work on production. I mean, it's kind of a growth thing with us, but like the channel, subscribe. We've got, like I said, the Spotify thing. I got that set up yesterday, so we'll put a link for that below. And if you're like me and you're driving and you're just listening to stuff, you want to listen to us ramble on, you can listen on Spotify. I won't have to worry about a cop driving by and watching the YouTube video on your dash.
Yeah.
And then comments, I mean,
we want it to be interactive.
100%. And we also have, I just thought of this, I didn't even mention it. We've got, we set up the Facebook page too.
Yeah.
So, and that's a good place for comment. I know you're supposed to have the comments on YouTube. I don't know what it does, but I guess it helps you. But, comment on the Facebook page. Any cool ideas that you guys want to hear about that we can, accommodate or just talk about, or, if you got something interesting to say, we'd love to have you as a guest. I mean, it's just kind of, channel for the people sort of thing.
And that's, like you said, right? I mean, it's literally for the people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't really have an agenda other than I think it's fun to share what we're doing and find out what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. So again, subscribe, like us, ring the bell, comment on Facebook, send it, share it. I mean, again, we are here for you guys, and we just want, like I said, you guys to know the little knowledge that we have. But the next video is going to be fun. The next podcast is going to be a good time, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching.